Hello and welcome to FatbossTV. My name is Alex and I'm with Loz today.
Hello.
And we're going to continue on our series of like BlizzCon breakdown sort of videos in which we're going to discuss loads of stuff that happened at BlizzCon. And today we're going to be mainly focusing on the PvE and PvP changes that they've been talking about and all the new content coming out with that. Just to let you know, if you're not interested in any of the PvE stuff, which we're going to start out with, and you're just here for the PvP stuff, me and Loz aren't exactly great here, but there's loads of stuff that we want to cover.
We tried
anyway.
our best to cover it.
Exactly. So if you do just want to watch the PvP stuff, there's a link, there's an annotation, click on that and that'll take you straight over to that part of the video. But to kick it off, Lawrence, the PvE content, there's a hell of a lot of it. There's so much content.
They have announced a lot of things. To start off, we're going to be talking about the new dungeons that they've announced. So it's planned to have 7 new dungeons, so 7 new 5-mans. 4 of them will be level up dungeons, and there will be 3 of them for max level, so that'll be your level 100 instances. They've also announced that they're going to be completely reworking UBRS, and they're going to be making a classic heroic version of the instance. So it's going to work very similarly to how Mr. Pandaria had its effect to Scarlet Monastery, Scholar Mance, and all that good shit. They're just going to completely rework it, which kind of makes me sad because it's going to crush some old memories, but the way that they rework the instances in Myths, I'm sure they'll do an even better job in Warlords of Draenor. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
I think it's awesome. Like, I don't know about you, I level a bunch of alts and I always get to this point where I'm at the Upper Blackrock Spire sort of level before I go into Burning Crusade and I sign for it and I get it. But I'm not actually sure which instance I'm here to do. Am I here to do Upper Blackrock or Lower Blackrock? And it doesn't tell you, so you kind of go and clear Lower Blackrock and it's like, oh, we're supposed to do Upper. Or you go and clear Upper and it's like, oh, we're supposed to do Lower. So hopefully they'll fucking separate those instances.
I'd imagine they will.
Or at least make it clearer.
They did say that they were going to completely rework it and they're going to make it sure that it does tie in with current lore and everything. So, and they did say that all instances that are going to be released are going to be available on normal, heroic, and challenger time modes as well. So UBRS heroic on time mode. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we don't have any previews of any of the new 5-mans at all, apart from the Bloodmoor Slag Mines, which is a 4-boss non-linear layout instance, and it does look pretty interesting. The whole point of the instance is you to like defeat ogres that are enslaving either Frostwolf orcs if you're an orc player, or if you're an alliance player, then you have to like free up your Draenor brothers and sisters, because they're sort of being enslaved for a mining operation to help fuel the war effort with the Iron Horde. But it looks pretty cool.
It looks super cool.
It does look cool. It kind of looks like a tied up version of like Dead Mines.
Or Ragefire Chasm.
Versus Ragefire Chasm, maybe?
Yeah, it's very
looks like a mixture though. It does look very, very interesting, and obviously all the ogres have been reskinned and look pretty sexy.
Yeah, they're proper good.
So yeah, looks pretty interesting.
Now, the 2 new raids that they've announced are Highmaul and the Blackrock Foundry. Now, Highmaul is going to be your first raid that comes out. It's going to pretty much be your Mogrishan of vaults. It's going to be quite easy to do. And it's going to be 6 bosses, and it like revolves around killing a bunch of ogres again. This expansion is just about killing ogres, I swear. And this is going to be based in Nagrand.
It's just going to be a nice little introductory raid to get you sort of warmed up for what's coming up next, which is the Blackrock Foundry. And there's been quite a lot of previews. Well, I wouldn't say quite a lot. I mean, they've given you an instance layout of how they're planning on doing it, but it does look pretty fucking sweet. So this instance has 10 bosses. It's a non-linear layout. It has 3 different wings, and once you have completed all of the wings, you will then be able to go kill the last boss, which is Warlord Blackhand, which I'm sure most of you guessed, because the whole point of the instance is just, it's in Gorgrond. You go there, and this is sort of where the war effort and all the war machines are really starting to pick up. This is like the backbone of the Iron Horde, where they're making all Garrosh's new weapons and stuff like that. So that's how that's going to work, and it does look pretty sweet. But you can see from like the layout of the instance, like if you look down in the 2nd tier, that room looks a bit interesting the way that it's laid out. I can imagine running through there's going to be a load of fire or steam pumps or some sort of environmental damage ink. Like fucking ICC style. I don't know. It looks pretty cool though.
It does look good. Now, the way that these raids are going to be released is actually very similar to the way that they did it in Mr. Pandaria Tier 14. So, they did say that Highmaul is going to be coming out first, and then they didn't actually say how many weeks or whatever later. Then the Blackrock Foundry is going to be released. I personally think this is a much better way of doing it, because it's nowhere near as rush everyone, especially if they give you that week to actually fully enjoy the content that they're really striving to make really fun and cool. Like, if I don't enjoy the content if I have to steam through it really quickly to go and raid. It gives a chance to
people that actually do have a job and actually do have a girlfriend to be able to raid as the first time it comes out as well, rather than just the no-lifers. Yeah. So yeah, good. It's a good way of releasing the raids.
They have also announced some more world bosses as well, so they're going to continue on with world bosses. They said that they really like the idea of like 500 frostbolts going towards one mob, and like everyone just suddenly coming out of nowhere to completely destroy this poor world boss that's just sitting around doing now. So I think that's really good. I really enjoy the world bosses. They also said that they might appear dynamically, so they'll just like spawn around and then they'll go around like different zones wandering about and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they may even be event triggers to make that sort of shit happen. They didn't really reveal too much information on that, but yeah, it's something interesting, and we'll have to see how that progresses. So continuing talking about the raids, we're now going to talk about the main core raid difficulty changes that they've introduced, because they've done a lot. They completely overhauled it, and it has changed 10-man and 25-man raiding completely. So I'm pretty sure everyone can agree who's watching this video, flex mode is awesome.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty good.
It does everything that you want it to. It's not as shit as looking for raid, and it is actually remotely challenging. It's cross-realm, so you can get all your friends involved. You can get your entire guild involved. It doesn't matter if like a couple of guys are offline, because you can do it with as many people as you want, more or less. And it's just brilliant. You can't really fault flex mode. I mean, you could say that maybe like the loot system's a bit shit. We're going to talk about that in a second. But Blizzard have decided to completely remove this mode from the game.
Okay, before you start freaking out like, you just said it was good! What they're doing, they're taking the technology from Flex, having the boss adapt and scale to how many people you've got. So if you have 12 players, the boss has like X amount of health, or like 25, it has more amount of health. So they're taking that concept of how the boss's abilities and everything work, and they're applying it to every single raid difficulty apart from one. So how this affects each raid difficulty, will start off with the Raid Finder. Basically, Raid Finder is absolutely the same still. You're still going to sign up and get a 25 player group. That's going to stay the same. However, if one of the dickheads leaves, or a bunch of people leave because they can't bother to keep wiping on the same boss, instead of the boss just staying at that 25 like man level, it will then drop down to whatever level you're at. So how many players you have. So say you have 17 people, the boss will just drop down instead of you having to wait around for people to join. So it's mainly just a quality of life change, to be honest, because, in all fairness, Raid Finder is painful enough as it is, so I think it's a really bloody nice change.
It's a nice change. It's just going to make things a lot easier if you are a person that does like to run looking for raid on alts, or even on your main every week. I don't know. We don't know who you are. But the one thing they did say about Raid Finder is that they were going to make it more of a tourism mode. I don't know if that necessarily means that they're going to make Raid Finder easier, but that's what they're hinting at least. That's what I got from it.
Or maybe they don't get as good gear, to be honest. I don't know. It's all kind of up in the air, so we'll have to see how that progresses. Now, with the actual current version of Flex that we have, that's, even though we said it's going away, the name Flex is going away. This mode is now going to be called Normal Mode. It's the new Normal Mode in 6.0, and this is going to be flexible between 10 and 25 people. It's the exact same as it is now. So Flex is now just called Normal Mode. That's it. That's the only change. You don't need to panic about that.
The current normal versions of 10 and 25 man raiding will now become Heroic Mode, which you're thinking, what the fuck? This will also be flexible.
So the difficulty is going to remain the same still. They did say that. It's just now it's called Heroic, and it has the Flex technology. So you'll be able to do this Heroic mode when really it's the same difficulty as now's normal, except you can bring 10 or 14 or 21 people. You can fuck about with it in this new Heroic mode.
Now, your current 10 and 25 man Heroics are now going to be consolidated into one single mode, which is called Mythic. Mythic will only be designed, however, for 20 players, and the Flex technology will not apply to this difficulty at all. So if you go in there with 18 people, it will be tuned for 20 people. If you go in there with 15 people, it's tuned for 20 people. You go in there with 21 people, you've broken the game because you're only allowed 20 people in there. So it's, you know, that's how that's going to work. So this difficulty is your new Heroic, essentially, although it's now renamed as Mythic. Now, all of these difficulties will be available cross-realm apart from Mythic, so you can continue to do your Flex Normal and your Flex Heroic with all your friends, which is brilliant. Each difficulty has its own individual lockout, so you can do both Normal and Heroic in the same week, which is brilliant. The bosses themselves will work very much how Flex works now and Raid Finder works now, where you're only loot locked, you're not boss locked, so you can go in there and do it as many times as you want. It's just you'll only ever have the opportunity to loot the boss once. And Raid Finder will now only be the only raid instance that you have to sign up for. For Flex Normal and Flex Heroic, you just go there as a group, you can't sign for it. Now, loot in the new Normal Flex and the Heroic Flex will work like it does in our current Normal and Heroic, where loot will drop on the boss and you have to master loot it or group loot it or free for all, do whatever you want. That's how the loot will drop. the amount of loot that is dropped is like based on the amount of unsaved players to that boss. If you do go in there with 10 people, then you will get 2 bits of loot. If you go in there with 11 people, you will still get 2 pieces of loot, but because there's 1 extra person, you have an extra percentage chance of getting an extra loot. And then the math behind it seems to be an extra 20% per person. So if you went in there with 14 people, you'd get 2 pieces of loot and an 80% chance to get an extra bit of loot. If you went in there with 15 people, then you get 3 pieces of loot.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've kept this same philosophy of how the loot is going to drop, with also how the boss's abilities are going to scale within the normal and heroic flex. An example that they gave was that in current flex, in 5.4 in Siege of Orgrimmar, if you go on the Fallen Protectors encounter, if you're 10 players, when the boss casts the dot that you have to dispel on someone, they'll only ever do 2. If you go in there with 14 people, it will still only ever cast on 2 people. If you go in there with 15, it will then cast it on 3 people. And that's just how it always works. But what they're planning on doing is that if there is that sort of mechanic, they'll make it so if there is 14 people, it will still only do 2, but there's an 80% chance that you'll get an extra one. Which makes sense, really, because that's probably the best way to do it. But ultimately, they did say that like very, very important mechanics will they'll make a little bit more prominent, and they won't make it RNG based. And now we're going to move on to Mythic. And Mythic, it's a bit of a touchy subject. There are a lot of people that are extremely upset about this. And there's quite a lot of uproar, but personally, me and Alex were extremely happy for this. We think this is like the best change, and it's come in at like almost a perfect timing. This is like such a great announcement, and we'll explain why. We'll also explain what the problem is. So it's a social problem. 10-man guilds are unhappy because they're going to have to recruit players if they wish to do the very highest and hardest content in the next expansion, which means they're also going to lose their small community. Quite a lot of 10-man guilds are 10-man guilds because they like to raid in a small group of people. It's more social, at least it feels like it. I mean, I'm one of those people. I love 10-man raiding, and the reason I do 10-man raiding is because I feel like I'm raiding on more of a personal level with the people that I'm playing with than I would on 25-man. I'm sure 25-man raiders would disagree. I'm sure there are some 25-man guilds that are out there that do raid on that sort of level. It's just my experience. My 25-man raid experience has always been pretty bad in those lines of things, and that's just what I like out of the game. So 10-mans are probably worried about losing that. I'm kind of worried about losing that. And 10-man guilds are obviously going to have to recruit, but it's not all roses for 25-man guilds either. Because they're having to go down to 20-man, they're either going to have to lose a load of players, so they've got to work out who they're going to lose, or they're going to bench those players. And benching people doesn't usually work out, let's be real. Most guilds, if you're benched, you probably leave within a week or 2, depending on what guild you're in. But what most people are doing who are really upset about this are completely blind to what the pros of this are. Now, when fundamentally Blizzard design an encounter, it has to keep in mind that it is made for 2 difficulties. They're making it for 10-man and for 25-man, both 10 and 25-man heroic. When they are designing, and they are keeping this in mind, it does significantly affect the mechanics they can use, because ultimately 10-man is limited because you can only have 10-man players. So not only is it mathematically difficult to make the encounter similar in difficulty, and obviously it has to be similar so that the competitive raiding community is happy, but it also blocks a lot of the creativity that Blizzard can use, as they're forced to create mechanics that focus on more bring the player than the class. And it's as simple as that. If you only have 20-man raids, you don't have to worry about mechanics that affect classes individually. In fact, you can actually encourage it. If you did that on 10-man right now, it just wouldn't work. It's completely unfair. As an example, let's say there's an encounter that requires some sort of mind control mechanic. If you had to force that on a 10-man raid team, that means you have to force that 10-man raid team to bring a priest, which is unfair. Not every 10-man raid guild would have a priest available. It's as simple as that. And if you are a 10-man raid guild, and let's say your priest is on holiday, you're fucked. You can't go any further. Whereas on a 25-man guild, it's pretty likely that you have 1 or 2 priests. In fact, you might even have 3 or 4. So it's unreasonable for them to have those sort of mechanics in the current stage of the game, because they can't do it with 10 and 25-man, which means there are so many mechanics. I mean, that is just one example. There are so many other mechanics which they can use in Mythic, but they can't use right now because of this 10-man, 25-man bullshit. So what I'm trying to say is that this has so much potential, not only like the reintroduction of like old mechanics that were lost in sort of like the times between vanilla and maybe the start of Cataclysm, but this also has the potential for far more new mechanics, because they don't need to worry about balancing. They only need to balance it for one thing. They only need to worry about the tuning. They don't need to worry about the mechanics themselves. They can make mechanics as easy or as hard as possible without it having any other effect apart from the fact, oh, this is hard, I can't kill it, or oh, this is easy, no problem. You know, which is the way that you want to create a game. You don't want to create a game that's, oh, this mechanic's slightly too difficult for 10-man, but it's actually really easy in 25-man. All the 25-man guilds are rushing ahead and all the 10-mans are left in the dust. They can't do that. It just doesn't make sense. And because they are making this change, that does mean that this next expansion, in terms of raiding, potentially at least, could be the best raiding experience that you'll have within this game, because they have so many options of what they can do with new mechanics. It's as simple as that. And if you don't understand that, then I don't really know what else to say. It is definitely the best step that they've taken. That is the situation, but ultimately Mythic has so much potential because it is eliminating the balance problems of 10 and 25, man.
So that's enough about all that PvE bullshit. Now it's time to go on to the PvP stuff.
Now to start off, I'm going to say I'm not really a PvP expert.
No.
I don't think you are either.
No.
I mean, I think the last time I actually did serious PvP was at level 60, 7 or 8 years ago. I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
AFK in a Rafi base and getting High Warlord.
Exactly.
That's the only PvP I've really done. Done a bit of Arena and maybe level 70. And I think you're more or less the same.
Yeah, very, very similar. But the thing is, with this new PvP stuff, this is very, very exciting. And to be honest, it makes me really, really want to go into this PvP stuff. So let's just cover everything first and we'll talk about it. And first off, we'll talk about the new world PvP zone called Ashran.
Now, Ashran is a island just off Tannan Jungle. It's to the right, just like above where the Dark Portal is. And this is just like a world PvP island. It's as simple as that. It's almost like the Timeless Isle, except there's going to be PvP-based objectives here. The island will be filled with like faction bases, as well as various sort of fighting hotspots with mainly objective-based combat. So it'll be like capture the flag, destroy the base, etc. The whole point of it is like it's a PvP sandbox.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's the concept of it. The great thing about the island is that they will be using cross-realm technology so that the factions are balanced. So there's a balanced population just to make it as even and as fair as possible. On the island, you'll be able to build and control like siege vehicles, and you'll be able to use them to destroy the other faction's bases, almost like Wintergrass style combat.
But the thing is, instead of it just being like, oh, Wintergrass, it happens every 4 hours, and then it lasts for 20 minutes, and then it ends, this will never, ever end. You will fight forever. But yeah, that's what's really, really good about it, because Wintergrass, it was kind of just like, this is kind of like a battleground. It was pretty much like, it felt like you were instanced in, and you were just there for 20 minutes, and then you were just doing it so you could go do the fucking PvE raid anyway most of the time. So now this is strict PvP, just for you PvPers, and it's all about like an endless fight. It's kind of like the old Altric valleys that used to last days.
Except
now this will
anyone can join in.
weeks.
Yeah, this is an endless battle.
Yeah,
it'll only ever go down when the servers reset.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it. They haven't really like talked about how the honor will work there, and they haven't, they didn't really expand on it too much. But just that concept alone has got me quite excited for PvP. On top of this, they also announced about a couple of UI improvements purely for PvP that will help track PvP objectives. Such as capping a flag in a Rafi Basin. It'll actually show the duration on the minimap, rather than like having to use boss mods that people have been using for since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
They've also improved like the score. If you hit tab or if you hit the button on the minimap, you can see what the score is. They're improving the UI layout of that, so you can actually see who's been the most beneficial.
Yeah, so instead of it just being, normally you just filter it by, if you're a DPS, you do damage done, or if you're a healer, you're like, healing done, you're like, yeah, I'm top. But now it's nothing to do with that. You get a PvP score, which is just basically, I imagine it's to do if you've capped flags, or you've done a lot of damage to people, so it kind of collects all of your, like, participation up into one little score, that you get to see really who was the best in that battleground. And then Blizzard also said that it's probably going to be used to see who is properly AFK, because if you have 0 score, then you probably even haven't moved. So, see you later, you're not getting in a battleground again. So.
What I don't get, why haven't they put this score system into PvE yet?
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have to use recount or anything. You just look at the PvE score.
That could be good, actually.
Do it, Blizz. But yeah, that's a couple of updates they've done. They've also talked about making battlegrounds more rewarding. Right now, if you go to a battleground, you pretty much only go there to let off steam and scream at your computer as you get CC'd to fucking just die. While you collect honor. But they're thinking about adding rewards, so when you do win a game, not only do you get your honor, your conquest points, you also have a bonus chance of getting like extra items, extra honor, BOE gear for like PvP as well as PvE as well, which is a really good additional thing to add to PvP. I mean, if you look at PvE right now, if you go to a 5-man and they need tanks or healers or whatever, you get the extra bag. I think it'll work very similar to that, except everyone will get it all the time. So I think that's great. I think that's a nice little bonus for PvP. It might actually encourage people to do more PvP. Probably not, but either way, it's a nice little bonus for people who do enjoy doing PvP. They've also decided to add weekly quests for PvP. Not really any exist at the moment. There's a couple, but yeah,
they're a bit crap.
They're a bit shit and don't really do anything. What these weekly PvP quests will do is that they'll actually enable you to upgrade your PvP items, which is really, really cool. They haven't really announced if it's going to be like a Valor Point upgrade system where you literally upgrade your gear by 4 item levels or something like that. Who knows how it's going to work? They haven't really gone in depth with it, and they said that the way of completing these quests would be by doing Battlegrounds or World PvP or something like that.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's just to make it so, say you are grinding quite a lot of honor, you don't have to think, should I use my honor to upgrade my item, or should I get a new item? Now you'll really be upgrading your items through these weekly quests instead. That's the kind of general idea. Of course, we haven't got all the details yet, but it's a really, really nice introduction to make it so at least people can get their gear to a certain level a lot easier. And talking about that, it's time to talk about the Trial of the Gladiator. Now, this is basically a new sort of arena ladder that is only open and available at certain times. Now, what the problem was is that they said is that it's hard for people who are right at the top of the PvP ladder, like who are the really, really best, to like actually get consistent games with people who are at the same skill level. And same with everything else, and it was really open to people to be able to exploit it by going on like at about 4 o'clock in the morning and just like signing at the exact same time and trying to get in the same one, so you could boost people up stupid high in the arena thing. Now this is only going to be available at certain peak times when there's a lot of people playing, and not only this, is that your gear while you're inside these arenas is going to be the exact same as everyone else's, and you don't need to farm it, and it will just be given to you when you go in. You're literally going to pick it up, put it on, and it's all to do with your skill, not your gear. And that's the whole idea of it. So even if you're a PvEer, or you're like don't even do really PvE or PvP, just fuck about, you can still just jump straight in here and just play up against people, and you'll all be on the same level playing field, which is super, super awesome.
Which is something that I'm probably going to try and just get destroyed in.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I'm not going to do very well.
Even if you're like, people might like who are really good at PvP might be saying, oh shit, well what's the point of me grinding all my gear and stuff? Well, there are still of course other sort of arena things that you can do, but this is like a place where it's like, prove your skill. If you're still good enough and you still think you're boss at PvP and you've been doing it since the dawn of time, you'll probably still destroy everyone, don't worry. But you will be getting a lot of nubs in there, like me and Loz, who are going in there since like first time since vanilla and playing about. And that's the thing is, like when I was leveling up my rogue recently, I got into max level and I was just like, oh yeah, I kind of want to do some PvP. And then I went into a battleground and I just saw how much gear people had and how long it would take me to get it, and I was just like, I can't really be bothered, to be honest, because I want a PvE on my rogue as well, and I don't have all the time in the world to grind both. So I think that's a really, really nice change as well, to allow it to be a lot more accessible.
But yeah, I think that's a really good addition to the game, and I mean it will promote PvEers to try PvP as well, which will increase the amount of people that are doing PvP. So I think that's a really good change.
The only issue that I could possibly see with it is that if people want to do something specific with their gear, so say you wanted to try out, I don't know, a fully mastery stacked rogue as one of your little special specs, unless they allow you to properly reforge before you go into this Trial of the Gladiator, or like just do something a bit fancy, it might limit the kind of things that you might be able to do, some little kind of crazy strats or anything like that. But that's the only issue that I could possibly see, and it might be implemented so you can fuck about with your gear before the game starts anyway. So either way, really, really cool changes to PvP. I'm super excited to try it out, to be honest, because as I said, I really haven't been asked to go into PvP because it is a lot of work to get into it. You do have to do quite a lot of grinding, and it's not always the most fun in the world to do Battlegrounds if you're in really, really bad gear. You can't really get anywhere, so it's just like,
you still get demolished.
Even if they have changed the resilience and the PvP power and the PvP resilience now, even though that's put in,
you still get demolished.
You still get demolished. So you do need the gear, and I think it's a really nice way of just kind of pushing new people and maybe giving a new injection of life into the PvP scenes.
So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you do share your thoughts in the comments section below with the new YouTube comments that are just absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. Well done, Blizzard.
And you can share us your thoughts, let us know what you think, and make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed the video. And if you'd like to see more of the Warlords of Draenor video breakdowns that me and Alex have been doing, please do click up on the annotations you see on the screen there, and that'll take you straight to those videos.
Thank you for watching.